So
Yeah.
you just said if somebody calls you for a potential tenant that you had,
Hmm.
and they call and they ask you for the background, you're saying you're gonna give them the Mickey Mouse, Disney, Disney fairy tale, Little Mermaid
I won't.
background.
Personally,
Oh, okay, talk to
yeah,
me about that.
personally
Talk
I
to me.
won't.
All
Personally, I
right,
won't. I
as you
think
guys can see, we're back here with another episode Behind the Doors. You guys are looking at the panel who's going to be on this episode today with us. But first things first, what I need you guys to do, I need you guys to subscribe to this particular channel, get our subscriptions up so we're able to get out in front of more people and continue to give you the content that you guys want to go ahead and watch. Now, as far as the panel, what I want them to go ahead and do is introduce themselves so you get somewhat familiar with them. We'll start off with Nichole.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nichole Fecteau. I am a full-time real estate agent in Southern Maine. I specialize in residential real estate. I work with a lot of property managers. I'm an investor myself and very experienced, 16 years of experience in this.
Okay, so my name is Mitch, real estate investor. Also work a full-time job as well. So self-managed specifically. We are located in Florida. So this is what I do. Buy and hold investing specifically is what I cater to. So pass it off to
Right.
Kirk.
Kirk Barnes, real estate investor from New York. Getting ready for this podcast, man. Let's go. I don't got a big introduction to do. I'm also a plumber as well. To let's get to the sauce, man.
So you guys got an idea of who the panel is, and today what we're going to focus in on is something that's very important. So a lot of people think when you close on a home, that's it. You know, now you're an investor, everything's smooth sailing. But there are some difficult parts that come along with it, and those difficult parts come along with it are tenant management. And we're talking about from beginning when you're screening a tenant all the way to the end when they decide to move on and leave. So we're going to jump into some questions about the whole part of as far as tenant venting, what you guys normally do when it comes to that when they fill out an application. Let's say you guys have a vacancy. You put it up on whatever platforms. I guess we can jump into the platforms you guys use. Tell me what it looks like after someone applies to you guys as a tenant. We'll start with Nichole.
Again, I have my own rental properties. I also property manage for or find tenants for property managers, and our process is pretty linear. I will post on either Zillow or usually Zillow apartments.com. I also put it in MLS. In the New Hampshire MLS, we have a really robust rental listing, the ability to list rentals. So I'll do it there. That automatically gets me rent spree, and that's what I use. Before I will even take an application from somebody, though, I make sure that I personally meet them. So I am a big proponent of scheduling a showing, meeting a potential tenant at the property, shaking their hand, talking to them. Because a lot of times, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but when I get those applications, the tenants that I feel like 9 times out of 10 they have a special circumstance. So it's their credit or their they might have convictions or something like that. And so when I can personally make a connection with somebody, have a conversation with somebody, I get a feel for their character, which is equally as important as their credit score.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things, Gus. I think you mentioned where do we list? So we list it on Zillow, apartments.com, affordablehousing.com, which taps into the Section 8 housing voucher. We also listed on turbotenant.com. And there's one more we listed on Facebook Marketplace. So those are really the five different places. Now, Turbo Tenant specifically, they send it out to different variations of platforms that can accept applications. So once you send it to Turbo Tenant, this is a gem, they're going to send it to different applications worldwide on the web that actually takes, applications, things of that nature. So from a area of where we list it to, we typically list it to those five different variations. And as we kind of get into the conversation, I kind of break down what the criteria, some of the criteria that we look for. I think Nico kind of mentioned around having a conversation with the tenant, because that's the biggest thing is the potential tenant. Let me say potential tenant. So you got to have a conversation, but we'll dive into that shortly. I'll pass it off to Kurt.
Kurt, what kind of platforms are you posting on?
For me, I got a couple of different mixtures. So when it's come to the long-term renting part of it, because I'm in two parts of it, right? I do midterm. I was doing short-term as well, but in New York, they changed the rule from the, 1 day, 2 day when it was on Airbnb and Verbo to now we have to do a minimum of 30 days. So right now I entertain travel nurses. So I use a platform called Furnish Finders. That's where I get a majority of my guests from. They come in for, 3 to 6 months at a time. I don't have to worry about it. Also, when it comes to the long-term side, honestly, I get a realtor. I don't live in the state anymore, so I'm doing this from Florida while the units are in New York. So, I use a realtor to vet them. And then, we set up a Zoom, go out there, meet them. I tried the Zillow situation, but too many applications came in. I was overwhelmed. I said, I can't do this. So yeah, but the midterm space is where I really dabble in it was as well too. And those guests I vet myself from Furnish Finders.
So, Kirk, with Furnish Finder, is there an application process on that platform?
There is an application process. They also do background checks. You can also collect, believe it or not, the fees from there, right? The rents, the down payment. If they have animals, we charge a little something for that as well too. But yeah, definitely Furnish Find is an all-in-one platform. It's about, I want to say about $110 a year, but it's great. You do your first booking, you get your money back, and they don't ask for a percentage of anything. You just get the guest comes in and that's it. You deal with it from there. We do ask for their ID. Rarely I do a background check. What I do ask them for is, where are you working at in the local area? I need a contract for the hospital that they're working for. And for me, that's good enough. I've been doing it for the last, 4 years, and I haven't had an issue with it at all.
Nice, nice. And then for Nichole and Mitch, the platforms as far as, I'm somewhat familiar. I use Zillow also, but Zillow, Nichole, you brought up the MLS. Mitch, you brought up Turbo Tenant. Is that correct?
That's right. Turbo Tenant.
Do all those have application processes? And in those applications, are they showing credit, background? What are they showing for those particular platforms?
So I use Rent Spree, and Rent Spree does a full application. The tenant pays for it, which I love. So I'm not collecting application fees. It does a full background check, and Rent Spree actually processes that for me. It does reference checks, so personal and work references, and Rent Spree processes that for me. So I don't have to get on the phone and do all of that. So it takes care of that. It does a credit check. It sends me the credit reports, because as you know, like, we can look at a credit score, and a credit score says one thing, but I would like to look at the report and see what, if it's a score that maybe isn't as great, I want to see what it is that's holding that back. Do they have delinquencies that are right now? And are their credit cards maxed out, or is it maybe some old medical stuff or whatever? Stuff happens to people, and people need places to live. So we try to be the landlords I work with are fantastic about realizing that people are people, and we all have things that we have to deal with. And then it also collects their their driver's license and anything else that it may need, or I may need. I can request right through there, and they upload it, and then it sends me a full report. So it's very easy. It's easy for me to forward it to my landlords so that they can get their eyes on it as well.
And Mitch, as far as apartments.com and Turbo Tenant, is that the same thing, or any different tweaks with that from what Nichole said for Rent Spree?
Yeah, same concept. They check for your criminal background. They also check for your credit score. And the credit score, what I tell tenants is, the credit score is made up of 4 or 5 different factors. For example, your debt to income ratio. We look also at your payment history. Have you been making payments on time, or have you not? Because that's a big thing, right? Also, if you've had any evictions within the last, what we look at is evictions. So we allow evictions, but if it's outside of 5 years, we understand, things happen, people mature in life, something might have happened 2, 3 years. I don't want to jeopardize or hold somebody back from moving forward in life for an eviction. So, things happen. So what we do is we put around, like within 5 years, if you had an eviction, there is no law in Florida, so we could actually get, security deposit around 3 times the amount if they are approved. So if it sits outside of the 5 years, we normally say, hey, it's not a big deal, and everything else look good on their profile, we can actually move forward. So same thing Nichole mentioned, credit score, criminal background, evictions on file. So same concept. I think all of the applications do the same thing. And then once the person submits the application, we get an email, we get to look at it, we download the report, driver's license, so on and so forth. But yes, same concept.
Let's break down that application process, and you guys kind of highlighted it a little bit. All important stuff. You want eviction if they have prior evictions, showing their prior landlords, showing their credit reporting, showing their income, hopefully with pay stubs and their contact information. For you guys, what would you say shows concern? Because Nichole kind of touched upon it as far as the credit, we can really look at it and then, decipher, how heavy we should weigh this. What would you guys say is a major concern on a application from a potential tenant?
Evictions. Evictions. If you got eviction on your credit report, I've had a few that came by, they tried, they try that thing. Well, it's been over 10 years. Yeah, that's nice. Next, I can't afford for someone to come in and having evictions on their credit report, and all of a sudden now I'm getting the same thing. I'm getting the same drawback. Also, how many people are coming to the property, right? Because I need to know how much people is going to be in there. I'm not going to bring somebody now. They're going to tell me, oh, it's only me on the application. Okay, but how much people are coming there, or especially over the age of 18? Next thing you know, there's 4 other adults that they're not disclosing. So I need to know that as well too. The credit score, there's a certain limit that I could work with depending on what's on there. Like, if I see something like it's mostly student loans, I won't give them that hard of a time. But if I see you just bought in, cars and you got your credit card max out, you have 19 or 20 late payments and 1 payment on time on your credit card, you're somebody that don't like to pay bills, so that I look at stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think the two biggest things that we look for as far as red flags with a tenant is debt to income, and then also the payment history. If your debt to income is too high, it makes no sense. It's just not going to work. And then the payment history. If you can't pay Chase or the minor credit cards and your bill is, I don't know, 200, $300, and I see that you're skipping and it's an X, because what the report does is it gives us a date and it'll show if this person has been paying on time with an X or not, or a check. So if I see multiple X's, I'm sorry, you can't, essentially move forward in the application. So debt to income and then also payment history is what we look at more on the application itself.
Red flags for us are any recent convictions, anything recent. I like to talk to the last landlord or their current landlord, because being a landlord, I know that if I have a tenant that I'm excited to get out of my unit, I'm going to give them a raving review to any application that they put in, right? So, speaking to their current landlord is something that I do like to do. And then to kind of mirror something that Kirk said about the number of people that are going to be in the unit, we do have, you can restrict how many people are that you'll have in a unit. And we do require that any tenant, anybody that's going to live in the unit that's over 18 has to fill out an application.
So even if they're, let's say the parents are the ones that filled out the application, if they have a child that's 18, 19, they got to be on the application also? Most of my
landlords like that. Yeah. And maybe not 18, and maybe not if it's like parents and a child, it's situational, but every single person that's in that unit needs to be accounted for. Actually, a lot of my landlords use the main attorney general has, I'm sure Gus, they have a model lease that they like us to follow. And in that, it does say, like, list out everybody that's going to be living in there. And we do that. We use that.
All right. Anyone else want to chime in about the application process? What's important when you get that back? Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, Nichole, let me ask you a question now. Yeah. So you just said if somebody calls you for a potential tenant that you had, and they call and they ask you for the background, you're saying you're gonna give them the Mickey Mouse, Disney, fairy tale, Little Mermaid.
I won't.
Background. Oh, okay, talk to me about that. Talk to me.
Personally, I won't. I think that so something I learned as a real estate agent a long time ago is don't put anything in writing that you can say to somebody. And I would never put it in writing. We live in a very litigious society. One of the little points that I like to make when I'm on podcasts like this is that anything that you put in writing should be written from the perspective of a judge is reading it in a courtroom, because it is, a likely situation that you will find yourself in a courtroom as a landlord with a judge reading your text messages or emails or whatever you've written. So but no, if I'm on the phone with somebody, I will be more open about things. And I haven't had a bad tenant in a long time, so I don't have to, it's not something that I've had to deal with. But yeah, if a landlord calls me, I'm going to be honest with them, even if it's, you know, detrimental to me.
And I think that's just a realization of things sometimes. It's kind of like when I'm helping a client or I'm buying an investment property and the seller gives me the P&L and I know that they're giving me this P&L to make it look as best as possible. So I have to go ahead and do my due diligence by calling the companies, seeing how much truth there is to this. These numbers that they give me, I kind of put 10 to 15 to 20% on top of it just to be safe when I'm
Yeah.
underwriting these things. So if I'm talking to a previous landlord, for all I know, they're trying to get this person get this person out of their place to my place. So I may ask different types of questions to them, not the questions that are going to make the tenant seem like they're the best person in the world. Also, I think the biggest thing is calling the previous landlord because they got no skin in the game. They can
Right.
just
That's
keep
so
it
smart.
100 at the end of the day. Yeah, that tenant sucked. Okay, that's what I needed to go ahead and hear. So that's kind of the things I wanted to say on that particular topic.
One more
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Because remember, I'm playing in two different spaces as well. So my vetting is going to be a little bit different, right? When it comes to the midterm, what I look for and what's red flags for me on that right there is somebody's trying to move in immediately, like
Mm,
yesterday, right? They want to rush. Hey, I'm in town. I got this contract over here. I need to move in tomorrow. Oh, wait a minute, calm down. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're coming from, who you're working with. Yes, I'm gonna put them through the same process. I need your ID. Need to know who you're working for. One gem I got from you guys, I started looking people up on Facebook. Like, who is this person coming in? What I'm saying? Who is this? So yeah, yeah, I look out for stuff like that. Whenever somebody want to jump in just immediately into the unit, nah, I don't like that. Another thing, they'll come and say, "Hey, well, I have a service animal." A service animal. Come on, what do you? I don't know where they got this service animal thing from because again, I charge a pet fee, right? You're coming now with a service animal to say, "Hey," or emotional animal to say, "Well, you can't charge me for this." No, I need my $20 per night
Like
per
you
animal.
can't. I actually just took my fair housing CEUs yesterday. But yeah, you can't charge for a service. If they have, you can ask for documentation. So it has to be documented, but if you charge, you're facing like a $28,000 fine. It's an insane fine and they have 1 year to report that for fair housing.
So
So
yeah.
Nicole, you're saying that you can't charge, and Kirk, you're saying what's your conversations you're having?
Kurt's like, I didn't say nothing.
Once they say they have a service animal or emotional support animal, I'm kind of backing off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, because I need my $20 per night, and that's what.
Right. And that's fair. You don't, just because somebody has an emotional support or a service animal or an assistance animal, you don't have to accept them as a tenant. And I think that's a really important thing. I get a lot of people, Section 8 tenants, and they think that just because they have Section 8, we have to accept them as a tenant, or my landlord has to. And that's not the case. Just because somebody applies and their application looks good, you do not have to accept them.
What I agree with you, Nicole. When you look at the whole application, you're looking at the pros and cons. And
Mm,
if there are a lot of cons in that, I think what Kirk was trying to say is he's trying to stay away from those things because he has certain criteria he wants
yeah.
things to follow. And also when he brought up the Facebook thing, so if I got someone's name, I want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence as much as possible. And I'm not judging anyone off of their Facebook, what they have on there. That's their own personal business. But I am going to take a glance at it, and I'm not saying that's going to affect anything, but that's just me understanding the application, the person who's applying a little bit better. So what I will say moving forward, Kirk, I don't like how you're laughing right there. But what I do want to say, moving forward is, so we went through the application process, and I heard you guys talk, you want to talk to the renters. So I don't normally have that on my end. You know, I may talk to them when I'm showing the place, but you guys kind of have, are you guys saying you have like kind of a sit down or over the phone? If anyone wants to answer to that.
I do it when I'm showing them the place. A lot of my landlords prefer that I do that, and just that I like shake hands with them, talk to them, find out a little bit more about them. You can tell a lot by somebody by how they present themselves when they're looking at a place that they want to live.
I do a Zoom call. So once the application comes in, Zoom, meet you on the Zoom, test your vibe out, see how you are. And then I'll meet you in person, but I'm not going to just meet you in person first. No, we're doing a Zoom call prior to get a feel of you, and then we move forward. If I feel like you're a good applicant, I'll move forward with that.
And Kirk, what are some red flags, let's say on that Zoom call, you would say would have you concerned? Maybe not you make your decision, but have you concerned?
The way how the background look, not gonna lie. That's too messy. I'm just like, I don't know. If I hear kids screaming in the background, yelling, running around, and I love kids. I got 6 of these crumb snatchers. But at the end of the day, if I hear a whole bunch of screaming and yelling in the background, that means you have no control of your household, right? I don't want something like that. There was one thing I overlooked once, and I'm still dealing with these tenants where the guy had no teeth, right? Or they was filed down. I should have known somewhere he might have been doing something, illicit drugs or whatever. He came on the Zoom, his chest was out, and no shirt on. But I just wasn't paying attention. I kind of overlooked it, and that came back to bite me in the rear end. So I'm looking at their demeanor as well too to see, how they answer questions, and are they being truthful? And sometimes even being too truthful can get you canned, because I had one person that came on and she's like, yeah, well, I had an eviction. Oh, sorry, I can't take you. Believe it or not, man, I'm gonna say it anyway. It depends on where you work at as well too. It all depends on where you work at, because if you're working for housing, I don't want you in my house. I don't. You know why? Because you're gonna feel like you know too much, and then you're gonna try to get me in trouble. I don't have time for that. So I don't. Anybody working for housing, anybody working for Section 8, I am not going to have you in my property. I'm sorry. And I'm not being discriminatory. I just don't like your job.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that definitely some good gems. So what we look for, when we have a conversation, we're looking at tone. We're looking at how you address certain folks. Some conversations go like if I feel like your tone is you are trying to run the conversation, that's not a tenant I want, right? It's just about respect. Now, Gus, you said something around Facebook. Yes, we look at Facebook too. We even Google whatever your name is, have been arrested. I'm just telling you what it is. I'm looking for everything. I want to see I am a private eye when I come looking at you when you submit your application. Oh, yeah. So you just be ready, okay? So we're looking at tone, we're looking at sense of urgency. Like Kirk mentioned, if you're trying to move in quickly, that's an immediate red flag. Can't do it. Now, this is what tells me you're a good tenant when you say, hey, I want to move in, but I'm searching right now. I'm 30 days out, 45 days out. That tells me you are proactive, you're responsible, you understand the components of the market of you moving somewhere. So we look at that too. And then we also look at, respect. It's just about having, some sort of respect. If you, say, sir, ma'am, whatever the case may be, and then we look at your car too. When we pull up to have a showing, I want to see what your car looks like. 9 times out of 10, if your car is filthy, you're going to keep the unit filthy. That is what it is, right? So I want to make sure that when we pull up and you parked, we're kind of looking in the car to see what that car looks like, how you're dressed, your demeanor, your nails. So we're looking at all of that because that's a huge indicator of who you're going to be when you move in.
No, I think you know what we're given, and people will take it however they want to take it. You know, we live in a society, people are going to have opinions, regardless if it's the stuff they want to hear or it's not. But we're given little gems that people normally don't bring up, in my opinion. They try to stay away from it because they want to be politically correct. And this is not a politically correct podcast. This is speaking from real life experience. And that's what I want to go ahead and say. If you don't like what you're listening to, you got the free will to go ahead and listen to another podcast. Because I like some of the things that you guys are saying here today. So let's move on. So we're at the application process. You guys spoke to the client. Now you're moving forward. Um, let's talk about that lease. How's that looking? What are some of the things in your lease that you would say, you feel good about having that in your lease? We'll start with you, Mitch.
So we typically do yearly leases. So when everything is DocuSign, we generate the leases in such a way where it's DocuSign. We also put this is a keynote. We put because sometimes you have tenants that move in and all of a sudden they want to move out, which you can move out if you want to, but there's going to be a times the amount to move out. And the reason we do that is because it just takes us 3 months once somebody moves out to rent the unit. So we have to have some sort of guidelines in there. So we did, do a typical lease, usually a year, typically. You initial each and every page, you have a security deposit. We put in there things of such as, how do we accept rent? So we do everything digitally. We do not accept cash because we live in a cashless society, with everything that we have online now with accepting rent payments. So we try to make it easy and accessible for anyone to deposit their rent payment. So, and our leases are typically around 12 pages. So they have to essentially initial each and every at the bottom of the lease for all of those 12 pages. Then it comes back to me. And then at that point, we exchange keys, for the unit. Security deposit as well. That's a big one. We got burnt one time because we accepted a check and that really really hurt us, and we went through an eviction process. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to accept checks, you got to be very careful with that. So yeah, that's pretty much our standard for our application and leases.
And what I like that you brought up, Mitch, is they have to initial every page. So they can never say, I didn't see that. Well, you initial the page at the bottom stating that you did see it. So I do the same exact thing. Nichole, what about for you as far as the leases? What are you proud about? What are things that you have in there that you're happy about?
So like I said, I use the model landlord tenant lease that the Maine Attorney General puts out as a base because I know that I'm obeying the law, which is important. Because I also hold a real estate license that I would like to keep. So some things that I have learned, both myself and through my landlords are if a tenant gets locked out, they have a one lockout, like I'll come unlock for them. It's going to be on my schedule, not their schedule. And after that, they are charged for lockouts. Plumbing clogs, learned this one the very, very hard way. Kirk, I'm sure you'll appreciate this one, but if they stop up the toilet or they clog the kitchen sink or anything like that, that is something that's going to be charged back to them on an emergency service basis. I learned that one personally. And then one that, it's like trial by fire as a landlord. So one that I just put in is like trash. I don't like my places to look. I don't want piles of trash out front. I don't want furniture sitting out front. So, trash has to be in the trash receptacle. Cardboard has to be broken down. I want us living like responsible adults in my properties. No furniture or other household items are to be brought outside at all.
Those are all solid things. So anytime something's clogged, that's an automatically charge on them. Now I'm just playing devil's advocate here, so hear me out.
Yeah.
So what if it gets to the point, I know you guys have seen online tenants who live filthy, horrible, disgusting. What if it gets to a point where the tenant's like, I'm not going to call my landlord about this clogged sink. We'll just go without. We'll just use the bathroom sink moving forward. How do obviously you won't know, but are you afraid that situations like that will happen where they're trying to hide things from you because they're in the lease?
I have not been there. That's a really good question. It has not happened to me, and I'm so responsive, and I like to put eyes on my units every once in a while. So, but that comes down to your screening, right? And what kind of person you're putting in there.
No, makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Kirk, what about you?
So as you guys were talking, I was actually going through my lease because this is my lease right here, guys. About 40 pages.
Oh my goodness.
Send
it over, Kirk.
That's I do have them initial a lot of stuff, signatures. And it's causing, there's the bed bug clause and all that stuff you have to have in your lease and all that, smoke detectors and all that stuff. So
lead-based paint?
Yeah, lead paint.
Yeah.
So all that is in the lease. They have to sign and they have to initial. So I do both. I do charge them a $30 fee. Let's say a check bounce. Mitch touched on that. I do charge them a $30 fee for that, just in case, again, the check bounces. Another thing, I do quarterly inspections, right? Every 3 to 4 months, we're in there. I want to see exactly what's going on, how the property looks, how you taking care of the property. I need to keep eyes on it. And I got that honestly from the short-term and midterm rental space, because I need to make sure that my units are always clean. That way when it comes to when they move out, everything is still in good order, good condition. If I need to do something, I could just go ahead and attack it because I know it's already coming up. Homeowners insurance, they have to have that, right? That has to be in the leases as well too. You have to make sure you have homeowners insurance just in case something happens. You guys can actually pay for it. Another thing I charge them for, Gus, and I was telling you this the other day when I went to New York, they didn't let me in. There's a $75 service fee for that, for having the guy come out and not being able to go in there to exterminate the property. So that, again, this is something that they sign inside the lease. And, there's others, but those are the things that I'm really, especially that quarterly maintenance check, that I'm on it like white on rice. That one right there, I'm really proud of having that in my lease. And I try to my best to execute that as well too. And sometimes, you can catch things like you was mentioning earlier, Gus. What if they don't want to call a landlord? Now, if I walk in a property and I see a faucet dripping, hey, why didn't they call me and let me know? Well, it's just a minor drip. Yes, a minor drip that's costing me. It's not costing them because they think it's something small. Oh, the sink is going down slow. Okay, it's going down slow now, but later on, it's going to be a major clog, and that's when you're going to call me up. You understand what I'm saying? So stuff like that, I make sure that I do on my quarterly inspection. Oh, here's my countertops. I had one lady that I ran to when I first started out. The lady chopped meat up on my quartz countertop. There is literally slices on the countertop. Like she literally just, and you could just tell these people they don't have no home training. So again, I was able to catch that on those quarterly inspection. But what am I gonna do? I can't change it out. But it is what it is. But those are some of the things I'm proud of that's actually in my lease, guys.
All right.
You brought something good up that reminded me. So we also require renters insurance, but with animals. So my rentals, I think every one of our rentals, we allow dogs, and we have a separate pet addendum for that. That's really thorough. But one of the things is a letter from the veterinarian saying that the pet is up to date on their vaccines, that the vet sees the pet on a yearly basis, because it shows responsibility that, if people are bringing their animal in to the vet regularly, that they're responsible adults. It's just another step.
And for you guys watching this, if there's something that we didn't bring up that normally you guys feel is on a lease, we need those in the comments. This is to help everyone else. I know you see us, we're having a good time, we're having casual conversations, but if we did miss something, put those in the comments for us. Now, we kind of briefly talked about expectations when the tenant moves in. Kirk talked about quarterly inspections. I want to go back to one thing. Mitch, you talked about checks bouncing. So with that situation, I always recommend bank checks because that means the money was taken out of the account, or money orders. Those are another things. But we got a lot of scammers and fraud people out here, so that tends to be an issue also. And when you brought up cash, Mitch, I had a gentleman, and Kirk, you brought this up also. He wanted to move in as soon as possible, and he offered me $8,000 in cash to move in. And I think a lot of people would have caved in and just heard $8,000 cash, cash. I don't take cash. You know what? I never take cash because I always want everything on my books. So I want to say that first and foremost. But so with him eager to wanting me to take that cash, I knew something was up. And after a few weeks, I ended up telling him no. I saw him on the news. So, and I'm not going to say what I saw him on the news for. I'm not going to say the person's name, but just know that could have been a situation I was dealing with. So I'm happy. My senses kicked in when that time happened. Mitch, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say my situation was a little different. It wasn't a bounce check. The account literally didn't have any money in it. So they went to the bank to deposit the monies, and I think they used a check. So and they were professional scammers, y'all. Like they took a picture. Hey, we deposited the money. I went to my account online. I saw that I think it said like it was deposited. Huh?
It was pending?
It said it was pending. So after around 2 or 3 days, I was like, something is off. Like my intuition kicked in. I was like, no, something has to be off. Called the bank. The bank was like, "Yes, sir. The money, there is no, there is literally no money in that account." So we went through a whole process, but yeah, that's what happened in my situation. There was no money in the account whatsoever. So do not take any checks unless, Gus, you mentioned it's a money order or something to that effect. Don't take any checks. Learn from my experience, y'all.
So, Mitch, you're leading us into the next situation on this podcast, and we're talking about tenants. Now, that particular tenant right there, talk about your experience with them. What happened? I'm hearing a little bit of pieces. You brought up the word scamming. What's going on? Talk to us.
Yeah. They were professional scammers, y'all. Like they understood. I don't even. So they used. They moved in. Secure. They gave the security deposit, which is weird, right? They gave the security deposit, but as far as like the first month's rent, they didn't. That's where the issue came in. Called them a few times, nothing happened, and then that's how I kind of knew it was a problem. So at that particular moment in time, started the eviction process. Ended up doing it myself in the beginning, but my time was worth more. So I ended up calling an attorney. He was like, he gave me two options. He said, "Hey, you can do this yourself. It's going to cost ABCD, or you can give it to us and we handle it for $1,100." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, you just handle it." He kind of gave me the walkthrough. We'll do this, we'll do that. You don't have to worry about anything else. So essentially, that's what it came down to. Gave it to the attorney. The attorney took the information, did the eviction process. The tenant eventually moved out, and that was the end of that particular situation. So it did cost us, I would say, with everything, getting the tenant out back online. I want to say it costed maybe around 3 to 4 thousand, including the attorney fees. So just keep that in mind. So please take my experience. Don't accept any checks.
And that's
Life
why
is so much easy.
That's why evictions are very important. When you see those on there, it's not like tomorrow we got them kicked out as far as the eviction process. It's a process. So people are willing to stay there throughout the whole process. To me, at least, that tells me a lot about that particular person. Nichole, I think I remember seeing on social media a bad situation with the tenant from you. I could be wrong, but talk about
Oh my gosh.
one of the bad situations.
So I have a I won't talk too much about bad situations with tenants because my tenants might see this. But I do have one. I helped an investor buy a property at auction that had a tenant in it that they just couldn't get out. And so I went over and I did a little recon and saw that the property was just in a state of it was gross. It was in a state of disrepair. So I helped the landlord contact the town and we got the property condemned, which is an automatic eviction. If you want to speed up the eviction process, get your property condemned. They have to move out or they will be arrested. I think they had 24 hours to move out. We got the guy out, and then it freed up everything. It was the fastest eviction that we've ever dealt with. It's my gem for you.
There we go. There we go. No, that was a good one. Wait, so the tenant made it condemned, or was the
Yeah,
property?
well, it was gross. Like, yeah, it was. So when I was walking around, there was just stuff everywhere, and every time I looked in a window, it was bad. And so we reported it to the town. The landlord did because he owned the building at that point. He reported it to the town, so that code enforcement went out and checked it out and determined that yes, it was unfit for living, and they immediately condemned it. And then the police monitor it from there. So that's the good news, is that the police monitor it, make sure that nobody comes back. It's illegal for anybody to be there. You'll be arrested.
Kirk, what about you? Any situation stories you want to share that you feel safe sharing?
So okay, so the tenant I was telling you about that was chopping the meat up on, believe it or not, on the counter. This was during the pandemic, and they were slick. They were professional tenants for sure. For about 6 to 8 months, I didn't pay any type of rents. A good thing I'm a plumber, I got some jobs and was able to cover their part to pay the mortgage. But with them, they went and got an attorney, believe it or not. I went and got an attorney as well. And the attorney, in order for them to leave out, I had to waive 8 months worth of payments. So you think about 2 grand times eight, what's that? 116, so about 16,000. I had to waive that, and they moved out after that. Also, these tenants I have now, they're city FEPS tenants. and these tenants are a handful. Their rent is actually about $50. Refuse to pay it because Section 8, City Feds pays most of it for them. And I mean, they just stay home all day long. I think even one of the guys that allegedly, this alleged, he's selling stuff out of the house. And I'm just like, yo, dude, like what is really going on with you right now, you know? But this is what happened when you don't vet your, and that's the guy that I say came in on the Zoom with his chest out, you know, and I was thinking in my head at that point in time, like, hey, you know, he is he's a family man, you know, he's the kind of wife, he had a kid, his wife was pregnant, which I figured she was, but you know, you can't really ask ladies their weight. You know, she was looking a little chunky and round, so you know, I couldn't really ask her. But yeah, I knew her fat. I mean, I knew she was pregnant. I knew she was pregnant, but I still took them anyway, and that was a big mistake on my part because now they haven't paid their portion in about 21 months. So you figured $50 for 21 months. They'd rather get a $50 late fee on top of the $50 that they already owe. And they missed a few payments prior to that when they was paying 875. They probably missed about three of those payments as well too. So you know, you do the math, it's a little bit over 3 grand and change, you know, that they owe on their side. But again, I should have known next time. I'm telling you, I have to check your teeth. I'm doing a teeth count. If you don't have enough teeth and if your teeth are filed down, do not apply to my property, please.
It's just like the dating world, Kirk. You see those Tinder guys with their mouths closed, smiling with their mouths closed. No.
Kirk, I think you should put that in the lease. You have to have a minimum of 4 teeth.
Oh my goodness.
All in the front.
All in the front. Real.
All right. Everyone out there, you got a new thing to add on to your lease. Okay. Now let's talk about tenants when they're inside your apartment or your homes. What would you say are some of the things that okay, so for example, Nichole brought up, you know, if they forget their key or they get locked out, they got one, you know, free pass. Other than that, she's going to charge. What are things you guys tend to see that come up that is repetitive, annoying, and you know, you want to charge them, or you know, you get frustrated a little bit from calls from the tenant? Or do you even get any at all? Or your tenants are angels?
So I'm a very, very responsive person because I am a real estate agent. So I make my money by being very responsive. And something that I have learned in my tenure being a landlord is that maybe you don't respond immediately to every single thing that they send you. And I think that tends to cut down on those annoying things because they know that they're not like, it might be a day. There's no such thing as a real estate emergency unless my house is burning down. Or, you know, we have a major emergency I'll respond to right away. But I think that kind of tempering your responses, and I have a tenant right now who is, she probably has some kind of mental instability. And so I will get, you know, when she's in this very energized mood, I'll get a lot of these crazy messages and then I won't hear from her for 6 months. And then I'll, you know, so it's really a matter of regulating emotions, I think, for the most part, rather I don't get a lot of annoying things, thank God. Sometimes it's like, you know, we live in Maine where it's so snowy. It's like parking. I think parking and snow removal. In my lease, I put that the tenant is ultimately responsible for removing snow from their steps, common steps, anything like that. It removes liability from me, even though I have it done. The ultimate liability falls on them. But, you know, inevitably somebody will be like, well, nobody shoveled. Okay, well, refer back to your lease.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, one of the things that we do and we don't allow the tenants to do is we change the AC air filters. So we do not allow the tenants to do it because what I have found is, based off our experience, if we tell the tenant, hey, change your AC filter, right? They don't do it. Not only that, but it gives us, even though it's in our lease, it gives us an opportunity, and we change it maybe once every quarter. It gives us an opportunity to go in, look at the place, make sure everything is nice and clean, have an idea around the property, stuff like that. So we change our AC filters ourselves. We just add that to the bottom line of the business. It's just part of the requirement. And then the other thing is, you know, what we do well too is if there's any issues in terms of tenant having problems, we always say, if a tenant, this is a gem, If a tenant hits you up and there's a problem, we always say, as per the lease, and then we screenshot it and we send it to them so they could see that this is part of the lease that you signed, those 12 pages. Oh, yeah, that initial, that's your initial. So we would give them a screenshot of the lease that says, here it is, here is documentation, and here's where you sign. So take that for what it's worth. One, if you're in Florida or a state that has central AC, change the air filters yourself. It bothers me when I hear, investors say, well, it's in the lease for them to change the air filter. I'm like, why would you give such a expensive equipment for your investment and you give it off to the tenant? Because an AC filter can destroy, and these air conditioners are like 25, depending on the size of the home, between 25 to 45, sometimes $6,000. So why would you give the responsibility to a tenant who to change the AC filter? It's crazy to me. But one, change the AC filter, and two, if you have any problems, always refer back to your lease and send it to the tenant.
Kirk, what are some what are some of the things that pop up that tend to be like, hey, you're going a little bit overboard, or it just gets on your nerves at the end of the day?
With the tenants,
Yeah.
hanging out on the front steps. Don't hang out on my damn front steps. This is not a hangout spot. Don't go out there, smoke no cigarette. Don't smoke a spliff. Don't do none of that nonsense. Don't do it in front of my house. Especially you and your friends. These YNs nowadays are a little bit different.
Yo,
I'm serious. Don't do that. I had one dude came, and these same tenants on the second floor, they came and the dude opened the mailbox. Like, bro, what do you have in my mailbox that you have to open my mailbox? And he's, nobody sees anything wrong with that. I was gonna call the cops. That's a federal crime. I was gonna lock somebody up that day, but I let it slide. I did let them know that you can't do stuff like that. Another thing, I know that they're kids, but the constant running back and forth, because my unit is a multi-family. So you got to be mindful of people underneath you. The constant take a kid outside to blow some steam off, take them to the park or something. I don't care how cold it is outside, go have a snow fight. But just running back and forth in the house, I don't like that. And really, as long as they stay quiet and they cool, everything is all right. And another thing, don't block my damn driveway either. You don't pay for that parking. We do charge for parking. Again, I'm coming from a short-term, mid-term rental space, so we try to maximize on everything. And I'm also in New York, so we know that parking is a little tight. So, if I'm renting out a unit where there's a midterm guest and they're paying for parking, I don't want my long-term tenants blocking my driveway for what? I don't want you pulling in my driveway. I don't care if you got to unload your groceries. Don't do it, because I don't want something now from my midterm tenant coming and saying to me, well, hey, I can't get in because somebody's blocking the driveway. So just little stuff like that is pet peeves.
All right. I did want to go back to one thing and that I ran into as far as the situation, and I don't want to give too much information. Then the person, they might see this and I might be in trouble. But I ran into a situation where I was walking towards one of my places and I saw a camper outside. And I was like, why would a rundown camper be outside? And I saw a whole bunch of water jugs and some other stuff on the ground, like a bunch of water jugs. It wasn't like 4 or 5, it was like 20, 30 of them. I'm like, what the heck is going on right here? So my contractor was like, yeah, Gus, you might want to look into that. I'm like, why? Like, what's going on? He's like, they're cooking meth. I said, cooking meth? How you get that? And first of all, how you know? That's the first thing I'm thinking. How you know? But anyways, so he gives me the whole breakdown of what's going on. As I walk closer to my place, he's like, Gus, you see that? And I look up, I see a camera. And then I see another camera pointing a different direction. Then one pointing out the door of the camper. He's like, they're watching us. And as soon as he said that, we saw 7 people file out of the camper and like go past us and went in a different direction because we were there to get into the property to see. So I was buying it. Didn't own it yet, so I was buying it. So once I saw that, I was like, "What in the hell is going on here?" So that was my introduction to Breaking Bad to a degree. I ended up buying that place, and that tenant ended up leaving on their own free will. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because I've never ever experienced anything like that before.
Did they disclose that? Because in the state of Maine, we have a methamphetamine disclosure in our state disclosures.
Since you said that, yes, they did disclose that.
Did they really?
No,
You
no,
know, disclosure falls on the agent in the state of Maine, Gus.
no. Yeah, that was an interesting situation.
One other thing, Gus, before you can move forward. Sorry. Another thing that they did that we should be mindful of too. And again, this comes with doing those quarterly checks. They had a brother and his girlfriend and their 2 kids living in the property for a couple months.
Oh wow.
He's like, I'm helping my brother out. Dude, you can't even help yourself. What do you mean you're helping your brother out? Like, what do we? I really didn't want to say, dude. I want to use another word, but I'm gonna be nice today, right? It starts with an N too. But I'm just like, listen, dude, you can't help yourself. What are you doing helping out other people, right? Because now what's happening as a landlord, we are in tearing the property, and I using more water. I pay for the water, right? Yes, they pay for heat and they pay for the hot water, but I pay for regular water. Now you got 4 other people in the property using water. My water bill now is going up and going up and going up. And also now you're putting more wear and tear on the property. So that was another thing that was a little pet peeve.
I like how you guys have you either like Mitch has an excuse to come by and do an inspection because he's got to change the AC filters, and Kirk has that inspection built into his lease. Like that seems to be a real key to maintaining your property and making sure that it's not being destroyed by tenants.
Mitch, did you want to chime in on how you set that up to work towards your benefit?
No, I think we pretty much touched everything. We typically send out notification at least ahead of time on the weekends, like, hey, we're going to drop by, do this, do that. So that gives us, like you mentioned, Nichole, gives us eyes on the property itself to kind of mitigate any risk that's there, and also ensure that the AC filters are changed. So that's definitely and we do have the same thing in the lease too, with coming by quarterly to do the inspections as well. So we do have that, but I just make it clear to them, you won't be changing the AC filter. I will.
It's great. It's an excuse to stop by, and it's great, and it's built in because I like it. It's like docile. It's not like I'm here to inspect. It's like, oh, I'm just here to replace your AC filter, and you could use that anytime.
So now we're talking about a lot of negative things as far as with tenants. I think that tends to capture a lot of people's ear, keep them educated as they go on their own journey. But let's talk about pluses with tenants. Because, I've had tenants since I've taken over the building that are still with me, and I wouldn't want them to leave. As far as what are some things that are pluses as far as your tenants? Obviously them keeping the place clean would be one, but anything else that sticks out? What makes a tenant a good tenant? And if you do have a tenant, are you raising their rent?
I inherited a tenant with one of my buildings, and I needed to raise the rent. She was paying way under market value, and she's pretty close to market value now. And I just had to sit down with her and we came up with a plan. She's always pays her rent on time, if not early, great tenant, maintains the property well. So I have no problem raising rent, and I do it like it's a work with me kind of a thing, right? Like, you're here, we need to be here. How can we do it? And how can we do it together so that everybody's happy here?
Yeah, I think for us, a good tenant, that's a good one. So what makes a good tenant? I would say paying on time, not necessarily bothersome, because you have some tenants like especially if they stay at home, they kind of have, they always have something they got to tell you. So that could be kind of annoying. So I would say what makes a good tenant is somebody that pays on time. They let you know when there are problems with with the unit. Someone who communicates well. I do have some tenants who communicate fantastically. Now, as far as the rent, to increase the rent itself, we look at the market itself, look to see the behaviors of the tenant, have they been paying on time? And then, we kind of work with them. If we do raise the rent, I've read in books where they say you should raise the rent at least 10 or 15 bucks per year minimum. So I have read that. So I think it really just depends if you have someone that's on a fixed income, and if they are good tenants, then would you really raise the rent if they're very good tenants? So it just depends on the market. Hopefully you have bought the investment at a good price, which you don't, have to raise it if you don't necessarily want to. But if you have to, you just have to go by the market rate, talk to the tenant, look at their behavior, look to see what their background is, and then raise it at a reasonable rate so that way you don't lose a good tenant. So very, very good topic.
I'm definitely raising rents. 100%. I'm raising that shit. Expect it. Now, depending on where you're coming from or what type of, let's say you're in a program. If you're in a program, I'm going to raise the rent differently, right? Why? Because I can. Regular tenants, them, I might, be easy on them, but I'm still going to raise the rent up. But why? Insurance goes up. I get ticket for garbage because they don't want to, throw the garbage out properly. Now I got a $50 ticket. I got to go to court. I got to pay for all that nonsense. So yes, I'm going to raise rent every year. One of my best tenants I had was a doctor. I could count on her money to be there like clockwork. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. It's always there. She didn't speak much, but whenever something was wrong, oh my gosh, she would let me know. And she was very stern about it. And again, it's because she don't ask for anything throughout the year, but when something do happen, she wanted to fix right away, which I mean, I do understand, but she's relentless when it comes to that. But yeah, she pays on time. If it's Section 8 and stuff like that, yeah, their rent's gonna go up a little bit more drastically than actually a paying person.
Kirk, let me ask you a question quick. So let's say that same tenant, Kirk, you try to raise the rent, she pays every month on time, but she couldn't afford to be there. She's a good tenant. What would you do in that scenario? Would you raise the rent and say, hey, this is your ultimatum, you got to move out? Or would you keep her at the same rent amount?
I got to raise it something, right? Again, the market that I'm in is a very expensive market. I'm going to try to work with them, but yes, it has to go up something, even if I say, hey, just give me $50, they could swing $50. It don't necessarily have to be 10% of whatever they're paying now. It won't have to be, extra $200, $300. No, I'll work with them. And that's a great question, but I'll definitely work with them, but they'll have to pay something. I'm not just going to keep you there, just keep you there. I mean, expenses goes up. And I do understand what you're saying that, if you got a good tenant and stuff like that, I just won't be too dramatic or too drastic with it. We'll have a conversation behind that.
No, that definitely makes sense. You should be. Most cases, you're going to increase rent to keep up what's going on, taxes, insurance, all the things that come along with being an investor. One thing that I like that I didn't hear anyone bring up is I like, especially in my bigger buildings, I like having one tenant that's tattletale. And they're telling me everything that's going on in the building because I rent to a lot of college students, and think about college students' age from 19 to 23. They got their own place. What are they looking to really do? A lot of them are there to study, but they're also there to have fun. Having, strategically putting particular tenants in each place to make sure if, they decide to throw a party or something that they're not supposed to be doing, that tenant is letting either me know or my property management team know. So we're getting the inside scoop on things that I am a fan of. When it comes to good tenants, I try my hardest to work along with them. Even in my state, let's say they're not in the best apartment and they're looking to move to a different apartment, and I'll try to position them somewhere else. Or if they're a good tenant and they're happy where they're at, and I have an opening, I know it's a better apartment, I'll have that conversation. So I want to keep them and gradually put them in my better places to take care of those places how they took care of maybe on the lower end places that I hold. But yeah, so as far as today, we had a lot of conversations from the beginning to end about tenants, the application process. Anything that we didn't cover that you guys want to go ahead and say something? Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say you just mentioned, yeah, that was a good one in terms of having someone who tells a tattletale. So yeah, definitely.
Nosy neighbor, I call them.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Neighbor, the one that knows everything going on in the neighborhood. Love that tenant.
Nosy Nancy is what we call them. But what you should also do is find you one of the neighbors from a different house. So what we do is we'll go in, we'll talk to all the neighbors. There's always one neighbor who knows every single thing about every single one on that block. That's 100% fact. You find out one neighbor, she or he will keep you informed on the community from 5, 10, 15 years ago, who's sleeping with who, and they give you so much information, and you plug in with that person, you keep their number, and they would always call you. That is my gem. I'm going back on mute.
So I had one of those. I did have one of those neighbors, right? But what did he start doing? Because he got familiar with my tenants, he started buying weed from them. So be careful with that. Yeah, you want to be careful with that, right? Again, they know everything. So I'm just saying
Yo,
that. No, I'm serious. That's I
yo,
went through that, you know. So just be careful of those nosy neighbors, man. They trying to get their fix too.
yo. All right, all right. So great discussion today. I think what we did, we saw a lot of transparency on this episode, you know.
I'll say.
Nothing was left to the side. Everything,
Uncensored.
yeah, everything was thrown out there. What I do want to go ahead and do, we'll start with you, Nichole. How can people reach out to you? If you want to give your handles, anything to close out, then we'll go to Mitch, Kirk, and I'll close it all out.
Sure. Anybody can find me. I think my name is right here. Because you have to spell the whole thing, but Facebook, my Facebook business page or my personal page are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. All my contact information is on there. I'm a real estate agent, so it's hard to not find me, honestly. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, not a problem.
Hey, this was awesome. You can find me online, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Mitch Davis Invest. So those are the two handles I typically go by. So just search for me. You can find me on there, Instagram, YouTube, and I'm usually on Facebook more often. So just plug in with me there.
I can find me in the clubhouse, man. I'm in clubhouse. I'm in the real estate rooms. You could catch me on there. K Barnes. You can try Instagram as well too, right? K Barnes 3211. Right on Instagram. So I'm not that social media heavy right now, but if you go on there, you'll see some stuff that I posted prior to. But I'm gonna get back very shortly. Appreciate you, Gus. It's a great podcast. Great thing you're doing for the community, man. Definitely appreciate that. Good seeing you guys, Nichole, Mitch. Good seeing you guys.
And as that wrapping it up, this is another episode Behind the Doors, and we were really behind the doors today. You know, you might walk away with this episode like, I can't believe this, but that's a good thing. You know, to hear from every person. If you live in an echo chamber, you're gonna hear the same messages every single time. And how do you evolve from that? If you're getting information, you have to have an emotional feeling to it for you to evolve as a person, I feel. So what you heard today, some of it you may not like, some of it you do. Take it for what it is. Move on to the next episode. We'll catch you next week. And just like that, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone.